Folks, it's time to suit up again for another episode of the Soul Searchers because we are entering the danger zone. Ladies and gentlemen, the Top Gun, Tommy Kyle. Welcome to the show, pal.
Thank you for having me, sir. Appreciate that. Good intro.
Oh, thank you very much, Tommy. But Tommy, you know, every guest has a story and every story has a beginning. Tommy, how did your story begin as a wrestling fan?
As a fan, I think it's quite the common one of like, you saw it as a kid. And then like, you find your ones that you gravitate to when you're younger. But I guess one of the differences, I suppose, is that my parents didn't want me watching it. So I tried to sneak off to watch like little bits of it around a mate's, and then they found out, and then they were really strict on it. And I didn't end up watching it for years and years. I think I came back watching it about, like maybe about 2010, I want to say, is when I think I got back into it again. So a really weird time of like era. Like there's not a lot of hot stuff going on in 2010. But then I found like, there's more than WWE at that point. I found like Japanese wrestling was a thing. TNA was a thing. I was like, wow. And then going a bit more forward from that, when I came out of school and started working, I really got into it. And then found like older tapes and things like that as well, and watched some WCW and things. And yeah, from there was hooked.
The story writes itself, my friend. But also, you mentioned they're watching it young, then falling out of love with it, and then coming back. When you got back into it around that 2010 period, what was kind of like maybe a shock for you, like as a kid? Like, oh wow, I remember as a kid, like these guys were here and these guys were killing it. Now things change. What kind of shock with that change kind of happened to you?
Yeah, I thought it was like because obviously they'd gone to a PG rating by this point, so I thought it was a little bit more, I guess, tame and not as aggressive. And you could kind of tell as well. And also like wrestlers that were there as well, there was a lot more sort of like character. Obviously we had characters back there, but you had like people like Santina Morella and stuff at this point. And you're like coming back to that and being like, what's happening here? Like, and it's just your usual, the convention I had of wrestling before, to like a guy in a singlet with a sock on his hand, which wasn't Mick Foley, a Cobra. It's just like, this is very different to what I watched, but it took me a while and I ended up loving it. But yeah, I think it was stuff like that. Like the characters were a lot more eccentric rather than just larger than life. Like The Rock, they were a lot more eccentric and a lot more, you go, what's going on? Who the hell is this guy?
No, absolutely, pal. I mean, it kind of shows, they say in wrestling, it's yourself turned up to 11, but then there's also sometimes where you could be another version of yourself or a entirely different person. Do you think maybe in modern wrestling we've kind of lost that character art style of another, wrestlers being another one of themselves?
I don't think so. No, I think probably now more than ever, like there are more impressive characters that are like still finding really clever ideas to stand out and things. And now, like, obviously social media is so big, it doesn't take long to see someone do something quirky and then it gets traction and then they know, okay, this works. And then they carry on doing stuff like that. There's loads in like the UK, there's loads of it in the US. So I think character wrestling at the moment is very strong.
No, it's great to see as well. It's such a great aspect of wrestling. But you mentioned Japanese wrestling there, and that is so iconic, going back to, All Japan and Noah, and then, everything that's going on there, even Joshi wrestling as well. And I feel like with every guest I've had on, Japanese wrestling is so important to them and so important with their learning as well. Why do you think it specifically with Japanese wrestling, it's such a key learning aspect of the business?
I think it's just because it's kind of like done in not presented the purpose of entertainment. It's more competitive. It's presented as a competition. So like obviously wrestling is presented as a competition as itself, but there's a lot more like in WWE and in AEW and in TNA, there's a lot more gimmicks. There's a lot more characters. In Japan, it's more someone will have an aesthetic about them, I think, like maybe in the entrance, and then it's just like, okay, we're fighting now, and it feels a lot more competitive. It feels a lot more violent, aggressive, and it also, I feel like it's just a lot more. It's borrows a lot more from traditional wrestling, I think, and runs with it. And I think also what I really like is kind of like how, like New Japan specifically, how they bring the newer wrestlers up with the Young Lion program. And like, I think it's just a really good way to learn of like where they strip everyone down to just black trunks, black boots. and they've got bare minimum. They go out there with the people who are more experienced, and they just learn with the bare essentials, and you can see their growth as they go. And then when they come the finished product, you're like, wow, like they're unrecognizable. And it happens every time without fail with every young lion. They just, by the time their excursion's done, they're just completely a different person, and they're stars by the end of it. So I think they've got something really good there as well.
Oh, absolutely. And, many wrestlers from even the States and here in the UK would go over to Japan and learn. And I want to know, Tommy, if there's like a young wrestler and, watching this right now and they kind of want to go to Japan, but they're on the fence about it, why should they go to Japan to learn?
I mean, you only live once. Like, if anything, like, you take what opportunity you can. If you can get to it, absolutely, like, do it. I've not been myself, so I can't comment on how to do it, but I'm sure there's places, like I think I saw recently, like Tajiri's opening a school or something like that, like in Japan. Like, so like there's ways up there that's not just a New Japan dojo. And if you can do it, who's the other guy? I'm fairly sure Taka Michinoku has a school as well that you can, like, I think it's like you pay to go out there and train for a little bit. But if it's something, it's an experience to go to Japan in itself. And you can put it on your resume saying that you've trained in Japan. You don't always have to aim for the New Japan dojo life, because I think only a very few select people get that. Like, like Callum Newman is recently going over there, and like he's definitely the blend. He'll smash it over there. But like, I think he's going to come back. He was already amazing anyway, but like I can't wait to see what it does to him after his time there.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, who knows? Maybe we'll see the Top Gun over there. But I want to know, Tommy, when I think of Japanese wrestling, I think of three main companies: New Japan, All Japan, and Noah. I want to know, if you had a choice to wrestle for one of those three companies, which one would it be and why?
I'd love New Japan. Like, if we're talking about like a dream place to wrestle, New Japan would be awesome. I just really like the style of how they make their cards and things like that. So they always have the sort of the tag matches to begin, the tag openers, and they've always got that nice same style, but it's all done very, very well for when they tour. It's quite nice at nice as it can be for wrestling on their bodies. It's a way that it structures people to be able to do that constantly on the dates. So when they got the G1 climaxes and the best of the Super Juniors and everything, and they open with the tag matches, it gets everyone on the card. They all do a really good structure of a tag, which is still really entertaining, gets the young lions in there. So again, gets them the experience. I think the style is just really nice in New Japan. You've got a nice mix of American and Brits and people from Mexico and everyone coming over now. So you've got a nice influx of non-Japanese wrestlers. And I just think also it's probably got the most traction and eyes on it globally than the other two. Not that Old Japan and Noah are like small companies by any means, but like New Japan having the Rev Pro connection and them running in the UK and running in America the whole time. I think they're a very big promotion. They're probably the third biggest promotion, I think, in the world. I'd probably say third. Yeah, third. Yeah, third biggest promotion in the world. So I'd have to say New Japan.
Oh, it's a hell of a one as well. I mean, I'm thinking you and Suzuki would absolutely kill it in the ring. Is there a particular wrestler from Japan you want to wrestle against?
Suzuki would kill me, I think. I mean, anyone who works there. I mean, they're all they're all the best. So like to pick one would be impossible. I mean, like he's not with them anymore, but one of my inspirations in wrestling was Jay White. So if he was still there, I mean, I'd still love to wrestle Jay White wherever he is, but like that would be my pick. But there's so many good people there in New Japan. I'd rather just them tell me the secret, like Suzuki and Ishii, how they're still wrestling at the age they are, at the rate they are. Like, what's the secret to that? That's what I want to learn. I don't know if it's something in the water in Japan or if it's the food or whatever, but like that's what I want to know rather than anyone particular. I want one of them to share me that secret.
Well, who knows, Tommy? Maybe the secret sparkling water every 3 days and have
it might be. Yeah, if that's it, maybe it is.
Well, definitely will grab a few cans then. We'll be sorted then. But let's come back to the UK home. And, once a fan's always a fan, but you made the leap to become an actual, professional wrestler. What was it that made you go, yeah, let's get into the squared circle?
So I've always done something like physical or sports. I used to do football. In school, I did taekwondo for a while. And then there's a point where I just wasn't doing any sport at all, anything. I was doing, I'm a musician by trade. So like my shoot job is like in music. So I was doing gigs and things like that, but I was kind of falling into a few unhealthy habits with what comes with gigs, starting to like drink a bit and smoke a bit. And I was just feeling rough on my body. I was like, I need to get back and do something sporty. And this was kind of the time when I was like starting to really get the bug for wrestling and watching more. And I was like, wouldn't it be like hilarious if I gave this a shot? But I was like, oh, there's nowhere to do it unless I like, go and move to America or whatever. And then like I found like a really local one to me. And on first impressions, I was like, oh, this looks so shit. Oh, so can we swear on this, by the way?
Scottish, mate. Fucking have a go.
In your blood then. Yeah, it was like, yeah, no, it was like, this looks so shite. But I was like, you know what, I can go once, and if it's shite, they're never going to see me again, so it's fine, it doesn't matter. So I went down, and it was just literally like, there was no ring, it was just like judo mats, because it was in a boxing gym. I was like, okay, this isn't great. And then I kind of started doing things, and the trainer was like really good. The trainer was a guy called Paul Ash, who used to work for like what's it called? Is it FWA? I can't remember the promotion. But yeah, he's a really good trainer, and he's broke things down. I was like, oh, okay, yeah, I'm picking this up quicker than I thought I would. And the bits of it were like quite like, it gets quite intense when you're not in a ring, you're on judo mats. So like the bump is a bit hard. Like you're bumping on, judo mats that suck, even worse than the ring. And you're like, okay, but it's firing you up a little bit, so you're getting a bit of a bite for it. And I was like, all right, I might come back next week and see if I like it again. And then that process carried on. I'll see if I come back next week. And I did eventually. And then eventually that led to trying out a show, which for a laugh. And then I was like, oh, I actually really love that. Let's do another one. And then the promotion eventually upgraded, got a ring, moved venue, and then it got better, training got better, and it all started to blossom from there.
Oh, well done, pal. Hell of a story. Obviously, what I've always been interested about is the training process in professional wrestling. I've had guests on who've used their background in tap dancing or modern dancing or even American football, and had Bobby Fish on. He mentioned his combat sports background helped him. Tommy, do you feel like with football or taekwondo, how much that kind of sports training transferred over to wrestling training? Was it quite fluid, or was it kind of a bit of a shock between the two?
I think there's bits of it that really helps. So like just general like athleticism, being able to like get up and go down and like you've taken knocks and things like that. So that's not new to you. But the actual learning of what wrestling is and like learning the art of it like is unlike anything. It's like their combat sports, I guess, help a little bit, but it's still, you're not implementing the same things you learned from that combat sport. In the aspect of wrestling. So like, and doing that and then learning, I guess the more the art of wrestling and kind of how it works and like working with an opponent was very different. And I don't think anything could simulate what that was going to be like. I like to say that I think I took to it quite quickly, but I still look back now and look at stuff now and be like, oh, actually, I still only just understood why that makes sense, and I learned this made sense the other day, and this is cool, and like you never stop learning it or finding out new things about it.
Every day's a school day, mate. You never know what you're going to learn from day to day. And obviously, Tommy, from being going to training and then going out and exploring the British independent scene, what was that like? From training up there and now thinking like, right, I have to make my own name for myself. I have to be Tommy Kyle and go out there to get dates, get independence, and build myself up within the wrestling scene.
So I had no knowledge of really the British wrestling scene when I started wrestling. All I knew was, WWE, the TNA, what I'd seen on TV and things like that. So I had no idea of like what a British indie was. I just thought it was all Butlins. Like effectively, it was like the Butlins shows that I've seen. I just thought that's what it was. I was like, oh, I'll go and get on Butlins at some point. That might be fun. And then I found out like there's companies like Progress and RevPro. And I was like, oh, maybe that's the next step. And then realizing, oh, no, those are where the actual really good people wrestle. And we're like, okay, cool. Maybe I'm a bit off there. for then. And then I was like, oh, sometimes it's just about who you know. It's like, oh, okay, so it's kind of like gigging, it's networking to try and get yourself a slot in places. Okay, that makes sense. And then I was like finding how many little indie promotions and small promotions there are around the country. It's like, oh bloody hell, there's loads. Like, where do they run in venue? Like, what venues do they hire? Then realizing that, oh, they usually just do a community hall or something, and be like, oh, I'm starting to see how this works now. Okay. And then it's just kind of the same way, I guess, you would go along with any kind of job or hobby or business. You just start trying to network with people that be like, where are you going? Where's this show? And you go with them and you just try and, introduce yourself. And it's so hard when you first start off because you've got nothing in your toolbox apart from I'm trying to get some experience. And again, same as a job, like that's what people look for. They look for experience, or they look for a USP, right? And when you've got none of that to begin, it's horrendous. It's so hard. So I mainly did for the first year or so, just like the promotion that trained me. And then I think like the one promotion like in the next town or county over, I think. And then eventually from that sister promotion, the guy put my name forward to one in the Midlands. And that means like, oh, I've got to travel. And then that you learn your 3 hour, 4 hour, 5 hour, however long drives up to do it in front of some community hall in front of 30 people or whatever to begin. And then that's when it starts, but then it builds and then it builds. And once you get the build, it gets better. But the start of it, as every probably person knows, is rough. It sucks.
Yeah, I can imagine. I've heard those, every wrestler's done the old car journey once or twice in their career, and then they've had some, mishaps or craziness happen on these kind of trips. I want to know, Tommy, have you got a particular car ride journey that sticks in your little head? Like, fuck, that was a trip.
I got one where we didn't make the trip, which is just basically we had just a gig in Sheffield. We did the gig in Sheffield, and that was fine. And then it was what was it? It was finished at like, I don't know, it overran, so probably, I don't know, maybe 10 to 11 or something it finished, which is great. So, started packing down, and then we left probably about 11:30, getting back down on the M1, broke down on the M1. This was about 1:30 in the morning, couldn't get anyone out to us until about 3:30 in the morning. And then they towed us to the guy's house, and then I had to wait till the morning to get a bus back to mine. Get back to my friends to get my car, and then drive home for, I don't know, what was it, 30 quid and a hot dog or whatever for the whatever they say. So yeah, that was a fun trip.
Well, hopefully that hot dog had a few relishes on it, a wee bit of mustard, extra condiments.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Well, obviously, pals, you would go out and do more, and I believe you won some champions. You won the Ticking Time Bomb Championship, if I'm correct.
Yes, yeah. That's Sacrifice Pro, which is in Bedford, which is quite near to me, which is a nice one.
Am I correct? That was also your first ever championship you won?
Not my first, no. It's the most recent one I've won was the Time Bomb one, and that was the one that I've only won coming back from the pandemic. But it's also been the most interesting one because of the it's got like a weird stipulation where like the match has to end in 10 minutes. And if it doesn't end, then the championship's vacated. So it's quite a sprint of a match usually.
Imagine, holy shit! I mean, 10 minutes, god damn! I mean, you look at stuff like going on the Monday, and like 30-minute Ironman match, we only need, and it's like 10 minutes. Well, shit, I better put on a banger.
It's got to go fast. Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, yeah. God damn! I mean, kind of those stipulations with titles. I think of when I hear that, I immediately think the other kind of stipulation titles, like 24/7 Championship, Hardcore Championship, Ring of Honor Pure Championship. Do you think titles having these extra kind of stipulations onto them give them more meaning?
I think it makes it more interesting if it's done within reason. Like when there's an abundance of them, you're just like, oh, you're just trying to be, you're trying to do something different for different sake. It's like when like TNA did like the reverse battle royale and where they have to get in the ring. You're like, what? Like, why? You're just trying to do something for the sake of being different. But I think something well thought out or kind of assigns a different style. So like the Ring of Honor Pure title was really cool because it lent itself to a certain style. The 24/7 was great for TV because you can get so many segments out of it. And you don't have to buy into like live ring time to do it and things like that. So if it's a well thought out reason, then yes. But just if there's an abundance of stuff going on about it, then maybe it's it doesn't always need to be some special gimmick or anything like that.
No, fair play indeed, Phil. Fair play indeed. But obviously, as we mentioned, at the start of this interview, Tommy, you're the Top Gun. You are the Maverick. How did that whole persona of yourself come to being? Was it just a 3 a.m. bender watching Top Gun? You're like, fuck it, that's it.
Not quite. Although that's probably the one that most people assume it is, which is fair, rightfully so. I can see it, but no. So I was just thinking of like characters and stuff to do, stuff to base on, and I haven't got a very creative brain for actual ideas. I'd say I'm fairly creative in the ring, but actually character-wise, I'm not very creative. And I was just looking at some point, I was like literally going through like YMCA listing people, be like just literally fireman, postman, stuff like that, like the most generic job titles you can do, right? And I was like, I'll do pilot. And the first iteration of the pilot before the Top Gun thing was that I was just doing an airline pilot, so it was like full suit, hat, come fly with me by Frank Sinatra. It's in that like that 2-year period where you haven't quite, you're experimenting, you're not sure what you're doing, but it was all right. It was fun. Some people I think some people liked it and some people booked it, which was nice. And so I was like, okay, I'll run with this for a little bit. And then the pandemic happened, and I was like, okay, I want to try and do something a little bit, something that's kind of just more me, that I don't have to put on a facade. Because the pilot originally was, I was really trying to be like someone I wasn't. And I kind of liked what I was doing with it, just because it was something that I can wear and I can put effort into the look. So I thought, okay, what's kind of like a step back, but still kind of playing with that idea. And someone was like, well, why don't you do, I don't know, like a Top Gun look? Because then you can kind of like wear casuals and things like that, and it like, your jacket, and you can be you under the presentation of that. I was like, yeah, I'll give it a shot, and it's just gone from there, to be fair. And it's mainly just carrying on from that idea with me, but everyone obviously takes it, and fairly right takes it, that I just love the Top Gun films. I still haven't even seen the second one, I'll be honest with you. But I know, right? Big exclusive for you. But like, yeah, no, I've just gone with that, and it just allows me to be me a little bit easier.
Well, I think folks, we need to get a crowdfunding now to get Tommy Cal to see Top Gun Maverick.
If people want to buy me the film so I can watch it, I won't say no.
Well, as long as they don't buy it on VHS or DVD, just to screw you over. But also, Tommy, this year you had a bit of a hiccup this year because you had an injury at Riot Cabaret show, and you would go through a lengthy recovery process, and I believe you came back a bit earlier than estimated time, if I'm correct as well, right?
Yeah. The doctor, depending which doctor at the time you would speak to, some said that like it will be 6 months recovered, but you don't know if you'll be back by then. Some said you won't wrestle for like a year plus, which the majority said you won't wrestle for a year plus. And I think probably most of them are saying it on the side of like caution not to get bit in the ass, which is fair. One doctor said like, you're like, athletes do recover faster because their bodies are a little bit, tuned for things like that. You might have a faster healing factor. They said it depends how much rehab you do and how much you look after yourself in the short period. Because when the bone is obviously healing and things like that, you've got to like be really careful with it and make sure you're not getting any infections or blood clots or malunion or anything like that. So I've just really looked after it for the first month or so. And then after that, it was just a hell of a lot of rehab, like a hell of a lot. Like I'd put it into my routine of work, and then it would be gym / rehab. So like it would be another hour on top of whatever I would do at the gym, just rehabbing. And I think that's a reason why it's come back. And yeah, they cleared me in June, medically. Is where they cleared me in June, but I still was like, I'm going to take just a little bit longer just for peace of mind. And I'm glad I did, because I don't think I would be ready mentally if I went back as soon as I was medically cleared.
Oh, it's good. So always take your time. You don't want to rush things and then worsen an injury, or take more time off, and the fans will miss you more. I believe the injury that happened at the Riot Cabaret, it was a simple move that you've done multiple times, if I'm correct, right?
Yeah, no, 100%. It was what we call a house show dive, which is just jumping to the outside of the ring over the top rope onto someone. It's called the house show dive because it's one that everyone would do in the WWE when it's local and it's the safest dive with less risk, ironically. And apparently not. I still 6 months later don't know what went wrong. I maybe came too fast or just landed awkwardly, but yeah, sometimes wrestling's just unlucky, and it is risky, and it's always, people say it's always the simplest things that you'll hurt yourself on. So like you can hit like whatever, like I don't know, 450 Canadian destroyers or whatever and be fine, and then you can break your arm by getting in the ring, or in my case break your leg by vaulting over the ropes, which is mad.
Nah, it's insane. It just shows, even in training, wrestlers have been injured just training ready for matches, and so like you look at Cody Rhodes with his pick and everything.
Yeah,
it's just insane, man. But obviously, you would come back, and you came back at Riot Cabaret, all singing, all dancing, coming back. You obviously, I mean, I was there at the show, and I remember seeing the promo package of you saying you had to come back at Riot Cabaret. What did that really mean to you? The show that you were at, or the company you were at before getting injured, and then coming back at the same one to that kind of crowd. What did that mean to you, Tommy?
It was really cool. It was really, really cool. Like Riot Cabaret, I just think is such a like cool promotion. It's just they've got the Clapham Grand as a start, and that's just like such a beautiful venue. It's like such a cool place to perform. So like there's that to begin with, but also it's just a mental full circle thing. I wanted to come back at the place where I hurt myself to feel like, I guess starting from where I left off in the most literal way. I didn't want to go. No disrespect to any other promotions or anything, but I didn't want to go to another promotion and it just be like, oh, he was injured, and now he's wrestling here. Whereas Riot Cabaret, it's like I've tried to get back to where I stopped. So that's kind of what I wanted to do, and just I just think Riot Cabaret and the people who run it are just an excellent promotion, and I think if they play their cards right, which so far they have, it's gonna probably be one of the biggest promotions in the country, I think.
Absolutely. I mean, as I mentioned before, I was there, which is a funny story I'll share here on the Soul Sessions from myself now. I was originally actually going to go see Fozzy that night, but I spoke to a former guest of the show, Arthur Scurto, and he was like, "Oh, I'm going to Riot Cabaret." And he was like, "Oh, why are you going there, pal?" And I was like, "Oh, this Tommy Kyle, my friend's he's coming back." And I was like, "Oh, let's check out the card." And I was like, "Holy shit! Sorry, Jericho, I'm changing plans here, bud." Then came over and I just saw the environment, the whole venue, stunning, absolutely stunning place. And obviously the fans, they were chanting Tommy Kyle, and having you coming back. Obviously coming out the danger zone, it's always a fucking win. Yeah. I mean, he just is meant, obviously, you basically kind of kicked off All In weekend.
That's what someone said to me. I was like, oh, I didn't even think of it in that way. And that's a very cool, I'd say honor. I don't know if it's as big as that, but like I was honored. I'll always have that little memory being like one of the biggest weekends in British wrestling. Was like, I think I probably had one of the first matches of the weekend, if not the first match of the weekend. I might be wrong, but and yeah, to return on that, like it wasn't even intended to return on All In weekend. That just happened quite nicely, but yeah, it was very, very cool, and it's a moment that I'll cherish for a long time.
Oh, absolutely, pal. Well, also, the first match you had against, the whole greedy vulture guy, Spike, hell of a guy. Obviously, against the Progress World Champion as well. I mean, kind of, obviously with the Riot Cabaret Championship being vacated because of Cara Noir, there was a match between you and Spike for a placement in a tournament. Finally, hearing that bell going and just sprinting and going in for wrestling after all this time away. I can't imagine, Tommy, it's just like feeling you're back. Tommy Kyle's fucking back, ready to kick ass and do what he has to do. Locking up with Spike must have kind of been like a very heartwarming moment, even if Spike's a bit of a interesting fella, shall we say?
Yeah, we'll call it interesting fella. Yeah. It's it was cool. It's also kind of like, oh god, I really need to remember how to wrestle. But because we say what you want about him, he's a very good wrestler. But it was very cool. It was nice to kind of like feel, even though I'm still a bit tentative about doing some of the stuff I used to do, just I think from a mental game, I'm sure my leg's fine for it, but just from a mental game, figuring out new stuff to do to kind of like get by and ease in, and just feeling out, you know, the steps, the dance, so to speak, I guess, and kind of remembering how it goes. And also you can train and stuff, you can do things in a training ring, but feeling the audience and playing off that, and you know, when you're hot and sweaty and under the lights and everything, that's something you can't really prepare for coming back. So, and once you're there, you don't have a choice, you got to go. So it's the first time I've been in a very long time properly nervous to perform. I'd sometimes, like, for big shows, get like, you know, little butterflies before, but like this is the first time I was a bit like traveling up there being like, oh god, I'm quite a bit nervous. So to get in there and then kind of like be like, oh yeah, this is wicked, I remember what this is like, was very cool.
Well, hey Tom, you've not lost that connection, pal, because as I mentioned before, the fans, they love you, so it shows they love you too, and you've got that connection, mate.
That's very kind of you, mate. Thank you, I appreciate that.
No worries, my friend. But I was gonna, you know, all in weekend, and London was fucking buzzing, man. Wrestling shirts everywhere, people having a good time, bars were filled with drinks, and you know, usual drunks as the Scottish. We came down from the north out of our caves.
I was going to ask where you were all in. Yeah, did you go to the Sunday?
Oh fuck yeah, of course. I was absolutely buzzing. Free shots tequila, 2 pints. I was ready for it. I was absolutely wallet was a bit fucked as well, but that's a story. But what does it mean, Tommy, as a British wrestler, you know, to see the fans out going to so many independent shows and, you know, basically flooding the streets of London?
Yeah, I think, yeah, it's more, rather than the actual shows being on it, it's how many fans and stuff and how many people were going to different shows constantly that week. And there was wrestling on the Monday and people were going to that. I was just like, you mad bastards. But like, it's so cool because, like, I don't know, a year ago, people were like saying Brit Wrestler's dead, and be like, is it really? Like, this weekend show's different. I think it's the closest I think we've had to that initial boom that we had a couple years ago, a few years ago. It feels really big, and like, it's such a statement to be like nearly 90,000 at Wembley, like over the weekend, and then people the whole weekend at different shows in London. And people, like you say, traveling down from like Scotland and Wales and like going abroad. There are people coming from Europe over for that weekend. Like, I remember at Cabaret, people were saying there was like people from Denmark and Germany there, and it's like, well, this is mad. For our silly little indie Brit Rest, which is like crazy, and it's good for everyone because it's just connection. It shows that what we're doing is actually popular. There's an audience for it somewhere, and that's a big audience. So it makes it, I can't speak for everyone, but it makes me feel like it's worth doing.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, we can see the evidence right there when 81,000 odd motherfuckers packed the Wembley Stadium for AEW All In. Yeah. I mean, that environment, that show, man, it still sits in my memory of just how electric everything was, and all the matches were great. What was your thoughts on the show altogether, Tommy?
I loved it, man. I think you're right. I think it was the energy of it. Like, I feel everyone knew it was special, and like the matches of like there was matches that I felt were better than others personally, but like every match was like people were like, yeah, cool. There was no, I hate this term, but there was no piss break match on the card. Like, everyone wanted to see everything, and I think just to be a part of the moment. And the wrestling itself was very, very good. I didn't feel like, I think maybe when everyone left the stadium, everyone got really tired very quickly. But I don't think anyone tired in the stadium, not from what I heard, especially like from the pre-show stuff to the main. I feel like everyone was equally loud, if not louder for the main. But yeah, no, I thought it was an incredible show. A very well done show as well. I thought it was very well done.
Very well done. All the matches were, hit the energy. There was never really a dumb moment where you hear like people doing dumb chants or anything like that, or just like silence. There was always that sort of energy going on. I gotta ask Tony, favorite match of the card?
Oh gosh, it's a tie. The main event was excellent. Was so well done, and so enjoyable. Just so many good moments from that. But I also just, the one that kind of got me, I guess, out of my seat and like heading to the bar thinking that I thought it was over, and then had to be like, oh, it's still it's not the finish. It was the tag. It was Young Bucks FTR. I'm a huge FTR fan. And that was an incredible, very, very good tag match. Yeah, really, yeah. I'd say between those two, very, very good.
Tell you what, nice picks, nice pick. I mean, I'm pretty sure Wembley would have rioted if the Young Bucks won and took the tag titles off FDR because. Like,
what's your favorite match?
Oh shit! Now I'm being interviewed.
Interesting to know.
You know what? I'm gonna have to say Ospreay and Jericho.
That was sick. That was very, very good. Yeah.
Because I always found it was interesting. Like you would hear wrestling fans on the old IWC, Jericho can't go. Why put him in a match with Ospreay? He's not gonna be able to hit it, and they hit it. They had a fucking banger.
Yeah, bro. Even if he could, he can, Jericho can still go. But even if he couldn't, Ospreay will just wrestle himself. Ospreay will wrestle himself. He's that good. But yeah, that match was amazing. And such a very cool moment to see, Will, Essex boy, come out to 81,000 UK people. I think everyone felt really yeah, come on.
We've got one of our own. Fuck yeah.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, but that match was excellent. Very, very good.
Definitely banger. But obviously, the fun didn't stop because when the whole show was over, we got the announcement. They're coming back. They're doing another Electric Boogaloo. We're getting another one.
We are, yeah.
Oh, man. I mean, first of all, fuck the hotel prices. They've already skyrocketed to shit. Second, Ticketmaster. That's always a shite bag as it is. Jesus Christ. I mean, them coming back, Tommy, I can't imagine that just certifies, British wrestling is here to stay and we're always going to be ready for more.
I think so. I mean, the figure of what they sold at merch was 1.4 million, for merch sales, for one day in the UK. That's insane. I think they would be silly if they didn't try and run again. But it's also good because it's I'm very up for another weekend like that. And I feel it's not just AEW though. I feel what was the Cardiff WWE pay-per-view?
Clash of the Castle.
Right, yeah, that was a similar vibe, where there was shows that were kind of running either side of that, and then I wasn't there for that one, but a couple of my mates went, and they said the vibe, it was bigger at Wembley for AEW, but the vibe of people being around for WWE and just hanging and all fans, that's such a good vibe. It's like football without the assholes. It's just way better. Sorry if you're a football fan, but yeah, no, I just think stuff like that is just good for British wrestling as a whole. So any things like that, whether it be WWE, AEW, New Japan, TNA, whatever, get your shows around them, make a weekend out of it. Lovely.
Easy business. And obviously you mentioned the vibe of British wrestling fans. We have our, I was at WrestleMania 39 this year, and I prefer the vibe that Wembley had and London had over LA, because there's just something about British wrestling fans that is so energetic, creative, and passionate. What do you think, British wrestling fans, how do they get that kind of identity of being passionate, driven, and creative?
I think because we don't have as easy access to it as Americans do, in the extent that we're AEW and WWE will go around the same states a lot. So you can go, I don't know, every bi-monthly, they'll probably be in town, and you can be oh, you want to go see the AEW or WWE? So when they come over here, if it's not the house tours, it's a huge deal. It's something to be really excited for. And to be in such an iconic venue such as Wembley, I feel British fans want to make that as big as possible for them. So they're let's go, let's make a massive thing out of it. Let's, let's enjoy the experience. Let's show how much we love it, and maybe they'll come back. And
well, thanks. We've done it. We've shown it. We have the proof. We have the reference. We have our evidence. Shut the fuck up, Americans. We actually
yeah, 100%.
Now, Tommy, obviously, I can't mention All In without the certain elephant in the room about the whole event, with CM Punk now being fired from AEW because of an incident backstage. People have said, he should have just been suspended. He's a merch mover. He should stay. Or some people saying he's a toxic element of the locker room. You got to cut that out before it starts spreading. As a wrestler, Tommy, if you feel free to comment, how do you feel Tony Khan's handled the situation? Do you think he's handled it the best he can, given the evidence? Or do you feel like there may have been an alternative way he could have done it?
So I think it's very easy to, there's so much dirt sheets and things and like Twitter voices and things online about wrestling nowadays. It's very easy to kind of see so much of a same opinion and kind of get on board that that's what's happened. I don't think, unless Tony Khan or someone makes a full, like, this is what happened statement officially, like, no one's going to know what fully happened. I haven't read the statement myself, but from what I know, I don't think they said what had actually happened there. They just said there was an indication, right?
Yeah, so Tony Khan made a statement through AEW that basically CM Punk was fired with cause, and obviously in the legal definition, with cause means that he was fired because of a reason or because of reasons to let him go. And I do agree with you there, Tommy. Obviously with the dirt sheets and everything, we can have so many people. We could have 30 people's accounts, but as long as you weren't in that room or you didn't see any video evidence, you will not know what happens. And I think with the internet wrestling community jumping on sides and all that, you guys need to understand, and I think so as well, if you're not in that room, you will never know what happened. And you could jump on all the bandwagons, you can jump on all the opinions, but at the end of the day, the matter of facts remains. The only people's thoughts and opinions that matters are the people that were affected in that room in the moment.
I think, like, I obviously, like, from a perspective of just someone getting fired, that's unfortunate for Punk. Like, that is, like, it's never nice to be fired, and especially considering it's kind of like it feels like he came back not long ago and now he's been let go again. But I saw something, like, I think it again might have been in what Tony Khan put out, that he's done it for, like, the safety of the AEW team. I think he said something like along those like words. And again, no, not sure what happens, but if it's a matter of being like, you've got to look after the majority, and you've got to make sure your team work as well as possible with you. And if there's going to be something there that is affecting that, or even if there's just a chance of like that's going on, it'd be like, okay, well, you got to cut loose. And if Punk is the issue, then you got to cut Punk loose. It's hard because no one will ever know, and I never like speaking on stuff that I'm not informed about. I hope CM Punk does okay. I'm sure he will. He's CM Punk. He'll be fine, I'm sure. And AEW will be all right, I think. And it's just it'll be interesting to see All Out, the reactions for that. But because I think it's in Chicago, right?
It's literally on in like 3 hours at time of recording.
Oh yeah.
Chicago crowds, they're creative. Not as creative as us though, but they're creative. So, we'll find out what they do. But I want to know another thought of yourself, Tommy. Obviously, All In was literally like nearly a week ago, and now they've got All Out, having two pay-per-views so close together. Do you think that's a bit of a burnout situation?
For me, it is. Like, I'm not watching All Out because I'm still recovering. But I guess it's a live one for the Americans to go to. I guess it's so they can have their big pay-per-view, right? Even though it's not as like All In, but I think it's that kind of vibe. And it all comes down to if they've got the money and they can run. There's no law to why they can't, or there's no reason why they can't. They're only going to sell tickets, and if they can make even, I'm sure they'll be fine.
Yeah, there's an appetite, meet the demand, as they say.
Yeah. But I think wrestling fans will always want wrestling, especially like the diehard wrestling fans. The casuals maybe not, but AEW has always struck me as one for the more invested wrestling fans rather than the casuals, and I'd say WWE is maybe more for the casuals. But people might disagree with that. But yeah, for me, it would be a bit burnout. But I don't think they're going to have any issues selling tickets, to be fair. So what do I know?
They never will. But obviously, Tommy, I love the future. We never know what's going to happen, and I want to, let's go a year's time. All In to see your Wembley Stadium. They've sold, 60 billion tickets. There's so many people in their rafters and all that. But I want to know, say, if you could have some British talent showcased in matches, obviously yourself, because you are the Top Gun, you'll be there. But I want to know, what other UK talents would you like to see being showcased on this card for All In 2?
I'd like to see everyone. But no, I've got to pick a few names. Leon Slater for sure. just he's the present, but he's also just so obviously the future. Like he's the best we've got. Yeah, it'd be great to see him. Charles Crowley, again, I think he's also probably the best we've got as well. Like those two. Let's see, what other people would I like? Oh, it's hard to pick specifically. I would, for just who I think he could have good matches with, I'd like to see Connor Mills. I think he would just have really good matches with just like, I don't know, anyone from like Blackpool Combat Club or something. I think he'd have an awesome match, or like give him like I don't know, anyone who's doing more of the pure stuff. I think would be awesome. Any women as well? There are probably some women in there as well. I'd love to see Nina do something as well. Nina Samuels would be awesome.
Oh, that would be interesting. And I'm thinking like her and Saray would be actually a very entertaining.
Cool. Yeah. Or even like Danny or Emerson or Rain. There are loads of good women at the moment. Like Rain Leverkusen, Emerson Jane, Danny Luna. Like they're all cracking. Like seeing them do something would be amazing. But yeah, it's hard. If I had to like pick who I think could also actually get on there, Leon Slater for sure, and Crowley would be my two picks. Just because I do think they are 100% destined for a bigger stage, and I think that is an opportunity to give it to them. I was not annoyed, but I was like, I did think maybe AEW might do something like a battle royal with like a couple of UK stars. I know they've got their cards and they've got their American views and things like that, but I was a bit like, oh, that would have been so cool. It's just like a battle royale, like even if it's just like to put over a really big monster and the monster comes out and like clears everyone, they at least see some of the boys and girls be like, we wrestled at Wembley for an AEW pay-per-view. It was only there for a minute, but they did it.
Well, Tommy, we've got a year. We'll get the hashtags going. We'll get petitions ready, and then we can have all you guys in the ring just to lose to Big Bill or something like that. I mean,
yeah, 100%. Love that.
That'll be AEW booking, but fun all around. But Tommy, Kyle, my friend, thank you very much for appearing here on the Soul Session. But before we go, I know you mentioned that you're a music man of the music of the tunes. I want you to rank your top 5 wrestling themes.
Oh, okay, that's not too bad. I thought you were gonna say like bands or artists. I was like, I hate that question so much. But like, no, the themes isn't too bad. Okay, do I have to do them in an actual order, or can I just say my?
Nah, I ain't that cruel. I'll be nice.
Good. Yeah. Okay. Metalingus, obviously.
Good.
That's a really good one. Let's see.
Oh, the Rolodex of music is going in his mind.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. Because I'm trying not to think currently as well, because like I like things currently at the moment because it's like, oh, it's like for instance, like off All In Weekend, I've got MJF ones just stuck in my head constantly. But I'm like, it's probably not actually in the grand scheme of all music holds up. DX for me, but the not the one they used later, one of the earlier ones, but I can't remember what it's called. The full Run DMC one with like the vocal track in it.
Okay.
That version. I don't know when they used it, but they used that for a little bit. So that's really good. Romans, new one.
Yeah, the final boss theme. The final boss theme.
Yeah, that's just such a good piece of music, and works so well. And then I think just for once personally that I like listening to, I'm going to put MJF's in there. Screw it. I can't think of anything as it stands. MJF's is really good. And then I hate the guy, but Hulk Hogan's. Yeah, like he piece of shit human being, but like amazing piece of music.
Fucking real American. It's like, yeah, banger.
Yeah.
But
It's so annoying. It's so annoying that a racist has got that. Like, because it's such a good piece of music, but it's like, oh, it's so annoying that it's his.
It's just like you're in the club, you hear that. It's like, I want to dance, but
yeah, right, yeah.
Well, hey, it just shows the world of music and the world of wrestling. They go hand in hand with so many bangers. But Tommy, Kyle, my friend, thank you very much for appearing here on the Soul Sessions. But what I love to do with every guest, the future, where can they come and see you wrestle in the rest of the year?
Oh gosh. So at the moment, I've got next week is a show called Wet Cake Pro Wrestling, which is a comedy. How can I can't describe Wet Cake. Let's peg it as comedy, but it's nonsense wrestling. If you like things like Shakara and DDT, go and watch Wet Cake because it's that kind of style. And that's a show that's going on in Bedford. There is Wrestle Carnival on the 9th next week in Cambridge. And then I'm somewhere in the middle of September, but I can't say. And then at the end of the month, I'm at Pro Wrestling East, which is in Cambridge. So that's September. That's September as it stands. That I can remember. But yeah, man. If you want to come down from Scotland, by all means.
on that 4-hour train journey, fuck no, the trains have been striking, man. I'll get stuck in Leeds.
I don't blame you, mate.
There's many places I can get stuck, but Leeds, yeah, that's the final straw. I'll probably lose my mind. But viewers, I know some people can be lazy, but Tommy Kyle's Instagram will be in the description of this YouTube video. You can click it, follow the Top Gun, and see him fly through the skies of the British wrestling scene. Beautiful. You can trademark that, put on a shirt, you'll sell millions, I think.
100%. Yeah, I'll give you 10%. Absolutely.
Business. But viewers, thank you very much for tuning in for another episode of the Soul Sessions. I have been Soul. He has been Tommy Kyle. Thank you, and remember to subscribe for more Soul Sessions.